Hello everyone. I hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to explore a story where an accident doesn't end at the hospital, and the real questions begin to point somewhere much closer than expected. When the road gives no answers, suspicion quietly turns toward the company itself. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happens next. Let's begin. The police returned to the hospital in the late afternoon. Not with urgency, not with noise. Just two officers walking down the corridor, their footsteps steady, folders tucked under their arms. They didn't rush, and somehow that made the room feel heavier. Tu Na noticed them before anyone else did. She had been sitting by the window for nearly an hour, watching the light outside slowly fade. Her hand rested on her stomach, fingers spread slightly, as if grounding herself. Alex was asleep. The machines hummed quietly. For a brief moment, everything felt almost normal. Then the officer stopped at the door. They asked if this was Alex's room. Alex's mother stood up immediately. She didn't hesitate. Her back straightened, her expression calm but alert. She stepped aside without a word, making space for them. The officers introduced themselves again, even though they had already done that earlier in the day. Their voices were controlled, careful. They explained they needed to clarify a few things, just details, just routine. They made it sound simple. Alex was still resting, so the questions were directed at those who had been with him earlier that morning. What time did he leave? Which route did he usually take? Did he mention where he was going? Alex's mother answered first. She knew the general time, but not the exact minute. Alex often left quietly, especially on busy days. She knew his usual route, but he sometimes changed it depending on traffic or calls from work. Tu Na added what she remembered: the sound of the gate closing, the way Alex waved without turning back, the car disappearing down the road. That was all. No one had followed him. No one had noticed anything unusual. The officers wrote everything down, their pens moving steadily. They asked about the weather, about the speed limit, about whether anyone had seen another vehicle nearby. The answers came slowly, uncertain, fragmented. Not because anyone was hiding something, but because the morning had felt ordinary. And ordinary moments don't stay sharp in memory. One of the officers mentioned a nearby convenience store along the road where the accident happened. The shop had a camera facing the street. They had already checked the footage. The room grew quiet. The officer explained that the camera did capture the moment of impact, but the image wasn't clear enough. Headlights flared into the lens, washing the frame in white. The angle was wrong. The resolution too low. The license plate couldn't be read. The other vehicle was there, but only as a vague shape. A presence without detail. Everything that mattered was lost in glare. Alex's mother asked if there were any other leads. The officer paused before answering. They were still reviewing things. They would follow up if anything new appeared. For now, there was nothing conclusive. They thanked everyone and left the room quietly. The door closed behind them. No one spoke right away. The calm returned, but it felt thinner now, fragile. It was Alex's mother who finally broke the silence. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't sound upset. She asked slowly, as if the question itself needed space. Has there been any trouble at the company recently? The air in the room shifted. Lan and Mai, who had been standing near the foot of the bed, exchanged a quick glance. It wasn't panic. It wasn't guilt. It was hesitation. Lan looked down at her hands before speaking. She chose her words carefully. She talked about pressure, tight deadlines, contracts that had become more demanding in recent weeks. "Nothing unusual," she said, "just work." Mai added a few details of her own. A delayed shipment, a partner who had been difficult during negotiations, meetings that stretched late into the night, small issues, normal business stress. No names were mentioned, and no one said Mai's name. Tu Na listened quietly. Her hand remained on her stomach, but her attention was fixed on Alex's mother. She noticed the way the older woman watched them, not accusing, not suspicious, observing. She noticed how Lon avoided certain details, how Mai filled the silence too quickly, how both of them kept their voices steady, careful not to say more than necessary. Alex's mother didn't interrupt. She didn't ask follow-up questions. She simply nodded once. "I understand," she said, and that was it. But Tu Na felt it clearly. This accident wasn't confined to the road. It wasn't going to end with hospital reports or blurred camera footage. Something about this situation reached further back, into schedules, into pressure, into decisions made behind closed doors. Alex's mother returned to her seat, folding her hands neatly in her lap. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp now, focused. She didn't ask anything else that afternoon, but Tu Na knew she was already thinking ahead, about timing, about next steps, about what needed to be uncovered. Alex shifted slightly in his sleep, unaware of the direction the conversation had taken. The machines continued their quiet rhythm. The room looked peaceful again, but the focus had changed. The uncertainty no longer hovered over the accident itself. It had moved away from the road, toward the company. And Tu Na understood with a quiet certainty that whatever came next would not be simple. Evening settled slowly over the hospital. The corridor lights dimmed slightly, shifting from sharp white to a softer glow meant for rest. Nurses moved more quietly now. The daytime rush had passed, leaving behind a strange calm that felt too still. Alex woke just before sunset, not abruptly, not confused. He opened his eyes like someone surfacing from deep water, breathing evenly, taking in the room without panic. Tu Na noticed immediately. She stood up from the chair before he even spoke. "You're awake," she said softly. Alex nodded. His gaze moved from her face to the ceiling, then toward the window. His eyes didn't dart around anymore. They rested, focused. "How long?" he asked. "A while," Tu Na replied. "You rested." Alex took a slow breath, testing his body the way someone checks the ground before standing. Nothing hurt sharply, no spinning, just weakness. The kind that came from exhaustion, not damage. His mother leaned forward slightly. "The police came back earlier," she said gently. Alex turned his head toward her. "About the accident?" "Yes?" She didn't add more right away. She watched his face, gauging his strength, his clarity. When he nodded once, signaling he was listening, she continued. "They asked about the route, about timing, cameras nearby." Alex closed his eyes for a moment, thinking. When he opened them again, his expression remained calm. "Did they find anything?" "No," she said. "Nothing clear." Alex didn't seem surprised. He exhaled quietly, then looked at Tu Na. "It was fast," he said. "I remember the headlights. Then nothing." The room stayed quiet after that. Lon and Mai had stepped outside earlier to take calls. They returned a few minutes later, careful not to bring the noise of the hallway with them. Lon checked her phone one last time before silencing it. Alex noticed. "You don't need to stay," he said. "If there's work." Lan shook her head immediately. It's under control. Mai added, we've rearranged things. Nothing urgent tonight. Alex studied them for a second longer than usual. Not suspicious, just attentive. That's good, he said. Thank you. As the evening wore on, the conversation drifted in small, quiet circles. About food Alex might be able to eat tomorrow, about when Henry would visit again, about sleep. But beneath it all, something remained unsettled. Later, when the room emptied briefly and it was just Alex, Tu Na, and his mother, the older woman spoke again. There's something I didn't say earlier, she said. Alex turned toward her fully now. I don't believe in coincidences, she continued, especially not when pressure is involved. Alex didn't interrupt. She explained what Lan and Mai had mentioned. Tight contracts, deadlines, negotiations that had grown tense. She didn't accuse. She didn't speculate wildly. She stated facts. Alex listened carefully. When she finished, he stayed silent for a moment. Work has been heavier lately, he admitted, but nothing out of control. Nothing that made you feel unsafe? She asked. Alex thought back. Meetings, calls, long hours, demands layered on top of each other. No, he said slowly, but I was tired. Tu Na felt something tighten in her chest. Fatigue didn't cause accidents, but it made people vulnerable. I don't want assumptions, Alex's mother said. I want clarity, quietly, carefully. Alex nodded once. So do I. The night nurse came in shortly after, checking vitals, adjusting medication. She smiled softly at Alex. You're doing well, she said. Rest is helping. When she left, the room fell into silence again. Tu Na watched Alex closely now, not with fear, with concern sharpened by understanding. He wasn't just recovering from an accident. He was standing at the edge of something he couldn't yet see clearly. Before leaving for the night, Lan stepped closer to the bed. Alex, she said quietly, there's nothing you need to worry about right now. Alex met her eyes. I'm not, he replied, but I want transparency. Lan nodded. You'll have it. Her voice was steady, too steady. After everyone left, Tu Na stayed. She sat by the bed, holding Alex's hand lightly. His grip was warm, real. You're thinking? She said. Alex smiled faintly. I always do. About the accident? About what comes after, he said. Tu Na rested her hand over his. Whatever it is, you won't face it alone. Alex turned his head towards her, his expression softening. I know. Outside, the city moved on. Traffic lights changed. People went home. Somewhere cameras blinked and recorded moments that would never be reviewed again. But inside the hospital room, the focus had shifted permanently. This was no longer just recovery. It was preparation. Because once Alex left this place, once he stepped back into his life, questions would follow him. And some answers, once uncovered, could not be put back where they belonged. After Alex suddenly disappears, following a serious accident in the mountains, everyone connected to him begins searching in quiet panic. Tu Na, raising little Henry on the farm, senses something is wrong when Alex stops answering his phone and his house remains locked. At the same time, Alex is recovering in a remote rural home, secretly cared for by Xiaohong and her mother, who saved his life after the crash. Unable to contact his family, Alex hides the truth, afraid of causing worry. As his company falls into chaos and his secretary searches for him, the distance between truth and silence grows. When Tu Na finally discovers what happened and rushes to Alex's house, emotions overflow. Relief, fear, guilt, and love collide, revealing how close loss truly was and how fragile trust becomes when fear replaces honesty.